The day Adelia told me she no longer loved me, my world didn't just shatter, it exploded. 15 years of marriage ended with a sentence, plunging me into a nightmare of deceit I never saw coming. Each step forward felt like navigating through a minefield, where every truth uncovered was another bomb detonated. No man should ask a woman to share this kind of hell, but there I was, living a story twisted by lies. Enjoy watching it. Over 5 years ago, my wife of 15 years, who was then named Adelia Lynn Masters and worked as a branch manager for Bank of America, told me she wanted to end our marriage. She said, "I don't love you anymore." She insisted she wasn't seeing someone else. Adelia claimed we just grew apart over time. I wasn't so sure but couldn't prove anything. I once heard her talking quietly on her phone about big changes in her life right after she asked for the divorce. We agreed to share our kids, who were 14 and 12 then. They chose to live with her after talking to some experts. I remembered all this because of what I read in USA Today this Thursday. There was a story about Adelia Lynn Peterson, now a junior regional vice president, and her new husband Ronald Peterson, a senior vice president. They were at a charity event in New York. The article showed another picture of our daughters, now 19 and 17, looking fancy and labeled as rising stars. They were there too. It was indeed Adelia. She reached the rank and fame she always wanted. The article mentioned she was well liked in social circles. Her new husband used to be a friend of mine. We all met when Adelia began working with him at Bank of America. My daughters now carry a different last name. My first move was to call my assistant, Helen Beard, to check if I was seeing this right. Helen, who is also a distant cousin of my ex-wife, wasn't in her office because she took a day off. On the day our divorce was finalized, Adelia didn't show up. I asked my lawyer to find out why before we proceeded without her. The judge wanted us both there so we could tell him that we both agreed with what our lawyers were saying. Her lawyer had to say she moved out of the state. My lawyer asked me if I said it was okay for my wife to take the kids out of state. I said no. That's when things got really bad. Judge Donald McDonald got very serious very fast. When he found out, he asked me to try to call them on my cell phone outside. I went out and tried to call. I found out the numbers I had didn't work anymore. I looked them up on Facebook and saw they blocked me. I went back and told my lawyer what happened. He told the judge. Right then, the judge said my wife was in big trouble and called it taking the kids without permission. He stopped everything until she came back to see him herself. Her lawyer was really upset and tried to make the judge change his mind. He said it wasn't a big deal because I could tell what we agreed to. But the judge reminded him I just said I didn't agree to the kids going away. Her lawyer tried to say I might be lying. The judge said that's why she needs to be here, and she has to bring the kids. Later, police told me her family said she moved because I was doing very bad things to my daughters. Even people at the Bank of America said the same thing when police asked. But when asked for real proof, no one had any. They just believed it because they knew Adelia well. Why does it matter? He's just a man, right? But listen to this. When they talked to the women in our big family all alone, even the folks from child help services who had chats with the kids told us they had no clue about this new thing being said. It was never mentioned by the girls in their talks. They didn't catch any hint that would have made them think something was off. But the talk spread fast in our town. All because of some folks in Delia's big family for the past 5 years. The judge and I got to know each other over time. We both loved fishing with flies. So it wasn't strange to him when I showed up at his place that night to see him and his wife after they had dinner. I had a reason for bringing the newspaper with me. "You need to see this," I told him, serious. I opened the newspaper to the article and let him see for himself. "Damn," the judge said. "Ruth, can you hand me my phone? John, give me a bit, please." Donald, the photo below is of my 2 girls. The judge went pale. "Oh, God, they've been right under our noses all this time." I stepped out to the patio. Ruth came out too, bringing us both a beer. "He's really angry. I've never seen him like this before. He's calling the FBI now. What did you show him?" Ruth asked. "A photo in today's paper of my wife who's been gone and her new man." "It's the first sign in 5 years that she's still out there," I said. The second photo was of my daughters with new last names. "Damn, what a disaster. That's why he's on the phone with the FBI. Running off across state lines with kids is a big crime," Ruth said. Why didn't the Bank of America help you find her? They fought a legal battle with a high court, pushing back on the order from your husband, saying it was a family issue so they didn't have to listen, I explained. Tell the judge I had to go home, my feelings are too much right now. I told him he could ring me at my work in the morning. It was a tough, long night. Was there more between them than just being friends? We were married already when she started working as a loan officer where I worked. He left. I was just starting my own business. Because my daughter's names were changed, I had to wonder, were they actually his or mine? Did he or I know the real story? I thought to myself. Take it easy, since Amanda was already here before Adelia came to the bank. The next day, my worries shifted to Helen. How was she dealing with everything after 5 years? Her dislike for her cousin only got worse. I knew she trusted me. The things she did over the years showed that clearly. I often wanted to hold her close and share how I felt, but I didn't. She deserved the very best a man could offer. With me and my situation, that just wasn't possible. Helen, to me, was lovely. Her red hair, her gentle smile, and kind heart were precious qualities a good man would value. I could and did dream about her, but that's where I stopped. No man should ask a woman to deal with the mess I was in. The next day at work was busy, which was good because it kept my mind off other worries. Near the end of the day, my personal assistant knocked and then opened the door. John, there are 2 guys here from the FBI. Should I let them in? Helen asked. Yes, of course, I've been expecting them. Iris wondered as I got up. How can I help you? I said as they came in. First off, I'm Mark Holmes and this is Douglas Drysdale. Mark said, we're here to learn about this whole mess. I shared how we met her now husband years back. I explained that, to my knowledge, there wasn't an affair back then, but because of how things are now and with my daughter's names being changed, it made me have a lot of questions. I reckon the only way to know for sure what's true is to make us all take a DNA test. I used to think Amanda, my oldest girl, came into the world before her mom started working at the Bank of America. But now, I'm scratching my head, wondering if my wife, Adelia, knew him even before then. It was Judge Donald McDonald who put a stop to our split-up process. He did it after he threw around charges. That's how things went south. I mentioned Judge Donald isn't someone you can push around or fool with nonsense. He's been like that in every case he handles because once a sneaky lawyer tricked him. Did you okay your wife taking the kids out of state? Mac jumped in. No. That day her lawyer let us know she had left the state. The judge told me to try and get a hold of them on my phone when I came back, but their numbers were out of service, and they had kicked me off their Facebook. So she took off out of state before we could officially end things and then got hitched in less than a week. Doug was stunned. So everything she did was on purpose. It wasn't by chance, Max said. That goes against what she told people in her interview in New York this morning. When was the last time you talked to your wife? Douglas asked. That would have to be 2 weekends before our last time in court, when Adelia and our girls picked up the last of their stuff from our place. Child Services had talked to them, and our kids decided that it was better for them to stay with their mom. I explained. Since then, I haven't seen any legal papers or any notes in the local paper, so I think we haven't been divorced. That means someone must have faked his signature on their adoption papers. Max said we could accuse them of hiding a big crime. I wondered, what adoption papers? But nobody answered. Mr. Master, can you give us your signature? Helen wrote a letter for me that said, following the request of Mr. Mac Holmes and Douglas Drysdale from the FBI, I'm giving a copy of my signature. I asked her to make sure she saw it, then make a copy for our files before giving them the real one. Do you still live at 87654 Yale Road East? Mac asked. No, I had to get a judge's okay to sell it. I told him the police were fed up with rumors about a bad person in our area. They helped me get permission from Judge McDonald to sell it right after I was hurt and had to go to the hospital a second time. He had locked all our money the day she missed court. I now live a bit out of town in a new house at Ryder Lake. It's hidden away with lots of land. I had to make sure it had power for my safety because some people still believed the lies others told after they left. I updated Helen on everything. She was amazed to find out her long-lost cousin was found. I could see hope and so many questions in her eyes, but there was still a lot we didn't know, so I had no answers yet. Helen, after I go tonight, I'll turn off my cell phone. If you get into trouble because of my mess, think fast on what to do. In a real pinch, call me on my house phone. Helen couldn't stand her cousin Adelia because she had spread lies about a good man, John, ruining his name and his close ties. John lost many friends and family due to her tales. She never would have thought such harm could come from one person until she saw it with her own eyes. How much must a person suffer before the truth shines through? Patience was tough for her, given what she had seen. Lies seemed to be more readily believed. Many thought that without his business, John might have given up long ago. He poured all his spare time into his work, growing his client list threefold. 2 years ago, he began to open up again. Around the same time, Helen noticed she wasn't getting her usual supply of trout. The biggest shock was that up until today, she hadn't heard him mention his wife or kids since they left. Over time, she saw him dwindle to a fraction of who he once was. Helen was 14 when she first met 19-year-old John at a holiday party. Adelia had just shared their engagement news, stealing the spotlight. Helen sensed right away it wouldn't last. John knew how to make money, and Adelia craved the limelight. He was all about family. She needed to be number one. As long as she felt top priority, things would run smooth between them. Helen had even told Delia's mom that if they had kids, a divorce would come once they hit their teens. She was spot on. Having lost her own husband in service before becoming a mom left her seeking advice from John. Let's redo this tale with simpler words and a story-like touch. Helen really disliked her cousin Adelia because of the harm she caused John, a genuinely nice guy. Adelia's lies made John lose lots of friends and family connections. Seeing this, Helen realized the power of lies to destroy. She wondered, how long before truth wins? Waiting for this was hard for her since lies often appeared to triumph. People thought without his job, John would have given up. But he worked harder, greatly increasing his clients. 2 years ago, he began to come out more. That's when Helen noticed she wasn't getting fresh trout like before. What got her the most was that he hadn't talked about his wife or kids since they left. Over time, she watched him become just a shadow of himself. She first met John, then 19, at a party when she was 14. When Adelia announced they were getting married, she became the center of attention. Helen felt right away it wouldn't work. John was smart with money. Adelia loved to be in the spotlight. He put family first. She needed to be the priority. As long as she felt important, their relationship sailed smoothly. Helen had even predicted to Delia's mom they'd split when any kids got to their teens. And she was right. After losing her husband before having kids, Helen leaned on John for advice. John was there for her when times got real hard. When she had to say goodbye to her husband, John was right there. Over time, he turned from just a boss into her closest friend. She saw John face tough days too, and it made her sure that she wanted to be with him as they both got older. But John had a big issue. His past followed him around every day, making him feel stuck in a world that didn't make sense to many. After Adelia and her kids vanished, people started talking. Lots of folks thought John did something really bad to keep his image clean. People guessed that's why John had so much security around. They thought he hid something awful on his land. Then one day I stopped by Ruby Tuesdays to grab a meal. I picked the endless salad and a side of catfish. Just as I sat down with my plate full of greens, Delia's dad showed up uninvited. He sat down, no asking. "I heard from Adelia today," said Roger. I didn't say a word, just kept eating. I didn't want to talk to him. Last time we spoke in public, he accused me of the worst, hurting his grandkids. That kind of talk in public just made things worse for me, spreading rumors. "Amanda and Miranda are okay," said Roger in a quiet voice. "My daughter finally told me the truth. You didn't do the things we said you did. She had lied to get away and hide," he explained. "Now she wanted to fix things. I'm here to say sorry," he said. He also mentioned that Adelia had been talking to other family members about this. "Tell everyone I've talked to that I'll only trust them if they get what she said and what I said on paper, and a notary signs it. Bring it to my office, then I'll trust you. Until that happens, I don't believe any of this talk. To me, you don't exist." "That's tough, huh, John?" Roger commented. "But I get where you're coming from. And why is that? I'm just treating you how you've treated me for the last 5 years. Think about that. Now leave me alone. I want to eat in peace," I said with no warmth. Remember too, in this town, with all the extended families, rumors have made some believe I should be dead over something I never did. I saw Roger walk away. Did he really think a quick chat could fix his daughter's issues? Did he believe a brief talk could erase 5 years of hatred, hurt, and pain they caused? Did they all think fixing this would be so simple? Did they see me as so foolish to believe nothing happened? Moments later, the waitress who served me came over and sat down. "Mr. Masters, I knew your daughters from school. What I just overheard made me speak. They didn't know what was happening that Friday before they disappeared. We planned to meet the next Monday at school. I saw the man who just walked out, with others from your wife's side, moving their things after they left," the waitress shared. "After hearing this, I thought you should know. Thank you for your honesty." "It's nice to hear the truth," I said. I was taken aback. I hadn't known this truth for all these years. I often keep to myself because I grew tired of the whispers and lies about me. Yet, she returned to work, and I paid the ticket using my car. I gave double, likely her top tip that night. I had a grand weekend, fishing in my canoe on the lake. Daily, I kept to my catch limit, throwing the rest back. Now, one of my go-to meals is fresh rainbow trout, fried in flour and butter. Both nights, I had it with eggs and toast. On Monday morning, early, I was at work making the first pot of coffee, reading USA Today. A bit let down, nothing new was in it, but I guessed my hopes were too high. Helen arrived half-hour early, a rare move for her. She seemed super happy about something, joining me with her coffee. I thought back to when Delia and I got married just after her high school graduation. Amanda was born just a year later. In those early days, I flipped houses, buying low and selling high after fixing them up. Delia took classes and started at a bank as a teller. I learned the finance world from the ground up. A past owner, seeing my knack, mentored me. When the partners retired, I started master's consulting. They still worked part-time, helping it grow. Then Miranda was born, and I saw our future laid out. "I heard what you told Roger on Friday," Helen said. "Heck, the whole town did. My phone was buzzing all weekend, I told them. Can you blame him? After what his family did, they turned him into a ghost here. I've got one question, boss. Why ask for notarized statements?" I smiled. "Public slander," I said. "Shoot," Helen replied. "You're planning to take her for all she's got, right?" I just asked. "Sure," I said. "It's the only way to wipe my slate clean and get my good name back. Even better if I can get the court to lock their funds until my lawsuit is over, they'll be stuck. They'd have to make do with a public lawyer. Can you imagine walking into federal court with a lawyer you didn't pay for? This week's going to be something else. If everyone who said they'd call me actually does, we're looking at 20 calls. Helen, always wise, said most of our family are honest folks. The trouble I kept saying all weekend is they took the lies for truth. I asked them to think on that when they went to church. I wonder will feeling guilty push them to do the right thing." As she went to her desk, Helen looked back with a grin. "Remember," she said, "some of us single ladies do like a bit of fishing early in the morning." I couldn't help but laugh as I left that day. "Thanks for the smile, Helen," I told her. Helen was, without a doubt, my anchor. I owe her. If it wasn't for her support, these last 5 years would have been unbearable. By Thursday noon, we had 24 signed statements. They all said the same thing. My wife, only in name, had spun a tale. She told everyone she left because I was hurting our girls. She said she got brave enough to leave. She'd told people she wanted a divorce for those reasons. If anyone had checked the court records, they'd see her story was false. Some helped her sneak away with our daughters and kept quiet for her. They all admitted to calls from her this week trying to fix old hurts, and in doing so, they said she admitted her story was a lie. I think she was just scared of losing the new life she's made. She didn't seem sorry for what she did. She would have kept going, pretending nothing was wrong if I hadn't seen her picture in the newspaper. I knew my daughters hadn't tried to reach out to me because they believed whatever she had told them. The best I could hope for now, with the truth starting to come out, was the feeling that maybe justice was on my side. I had come to accept that as far as my daughters and most of the family were concerned, I was out of the picture. But I had a name to work with now. Helen managed to dig up her current legal address, where they both worked, and even their current financial standing. She told me, Your meeting with the civil lawyer is set to make sure Adelia gets served before she gets formally charged, and don't forget to ask for a court order to freeze their assets. I thought to myself, Helen isn't leaving anything to chance. God help Adelia if Helen ever runs into her, because Helen sure won't. I returned to the office at 4:30 with a cold bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. The lawyer Helen had chosen was on board with the case. I handed over everything. The old court records, the transcripts, the judge's decision, all the affidavits signed, and the arrest warrant copy. I also showed her the newspaper article that showcased my wife's new life. I made sure she understood the history between the 3 of us, including when I had met him. When the lawyer found out about the bank's involvement, she suggested we should sue them too, for helping to ruin my life on purpose. I agreed, saying as long as we could cover everything with one lawsuit, I was in. She smiled, saying we were all set. It made me think about how quick we are to sue in America. Helen and I ended up sharing the champagne I brought. The 750 milliliters bottle was just enough for about 2 glasses each. We were just hanging out, talking, when our phone rang. Helen picked it up and whispered, "It's the judge." I hit the speaker button. "Hey, Donald, how's today treating you?" I said, keeping things light despite everything. "Pretty well, under the circumstances," he replied. "John, I wanted to let you know that the FBI is going ahead with a big meeting against Adelia, Lynn Peterson, and Ronald Emerson Peterson next Wednesday. They're also going to ask for a special order to take Miranda Peterson into safekeeping, and they want everyone to take a blood test for DNA." Judge Donald added, "Your eldest daughter is now an adult, so she'll be their responsibility." "Thanks for letting me know. It means a lot," I said, then shifted the topic to my divorce. "I'm ready to finalize it with terms in your favor as soon as she's in front of my court, even if we have to do it over a video call," Donald said, his tone serious. "She'll have to answer for her actions in front of me." After we hung up, Helen looked worried. "The judge seems like he's going to be tough on her, but can he actually put her in jail?" "Well, the kidnapping stuff and anything related will be up to the FBI," I said, unsure myself, "but he can make a decision on her not showing up to court. Beyond that, I really don't know what he's allowed to do." "It looks like you're in for more waiting," Helen said, her voice full of sorrow. "Yeah, I've been waiting for over 5 years now. A few more weeks won't change much. Plus, it gives the lawyer I hired a bit more time to prepare and get her officially noticed by the court. If anyone knew what was going on, they weren't talking." Time flew, and by next Thursday, my attorney called to say they'd been notified while at work on Wednesday. She'd managed to get their stuff like bank accounts and property locked down. Later that day, Doug Drysdale from the FBI got in touch, asking me to head over to St. Francis Hospital to give a blood sample for the DNA test before 6. They were going to check the sample against their records. I was happy to do it. I was out on the lake trying to catch some fish for breakfast on Saturday morning when my phone rang. I saw it was Helen calling. "You need to go to the office and look at the USA Today paper," she told me. It had a story about Adelia, Ronald, and Miranda being caught by the FBI last night at a party. I said, "I'm on the lake but heading back. After I change, I'll go to the office and see what's up." I was very curious. It took me about an hour to get to my office. Helen was right, and what the paper said caught my eye. Kidnapping. We all think we know what it means. But does it match up to what laws say? By law, kidnapping is defined as using force, lies, or fear to take or keep someone against their will, for some benefit to the one who takes them. Kidnapping is a major crime. On average, people get 12 years in jail for it. This is one of the charges Adelia and Ronald Peterson are facing because Adelia took her kids and left Missouri without telling her husband, as they were getting a divorce, the court records say. She said she didn't love him anymore. The judge issued a warrant for her arrest for kidnapping after stopping the divorce because she didn't show up as told. Our own story from 3 weeks ago helped catch her. It turns out Adelia used a fake name when she married Ronald Peterson in a simple ceremony in New York City, just a week after leaving Missouri. They had tried to make Ronald legally the dad of Amanda and Miranda through papers that had lies in them. These papers were given to a judge who said yes to them. John Masters' signature was faked. The FBI now thinks the couple did this to hide the daughters where no one would look. A long time ago, a couple worked together at Bank of America when they were just starting their jobs. Mr. John Masters had tried to get the Bank of America to tell him where his wife was, but they got a judge to say they didn't have to. It turns out that Ronald Peterson, who was high up in the Bank of America, was using his big job to stop Mr. Masters from finding his wife and kids. We found out that Mr. Masters is now suing Adelia Peterson because she told lots of her family and friends a very bad thing about him, saying he hurt his daughters. The local police said this wasn't true. Even 5 years later, people still call him names because of what was said. They say it's not true, but Mr. Masters feels like he has to hide away because people think badly of him. I asked if it was really that hard for John Masters. The police said, "We're still looking into some very bad things where he was the one hurt." Lots of people thought he did something terrible and got away with it. He's also suing the Bank of America and Ronald Peterson for messing up his life. Think about it from his side for a bit. Doesn't he deserve some kindness and justice? I think so. But what will he really get? Probably nothing. Because people often don't think about the hurt person when bad things happen. They can say what they feel, but the news doesn't share it because it doesn't sell papers. Often the hurt person is the one who suffers the most. Meanwhile, the person who did the bad thing gets everything for free. This story shook me. Just as I was getting more coffee, my phone rang. I picked it up and said, "This is Masters Consulting. How can I help you?" On the other end was the Southeast Missouri newspaper. I checked, and the story about my tough times was true. The journalist wanted to know how I've been these past 5 years. I told him about the 2 times someone tried to hurt me on purpose. The cops saw it as a try to kill me. I shared how wild the stories about me had gotten. Then I wondered what he thought of my ordeal. He said it seemed like a nightmare that never ended. It was hard to grasp that this bad dream was almost over. My name was getting a bit cleared, but the damage was done. 5 years had broken any bond I once had with my daughters, like the stories had messed up things with my folks and siblings. When all this was done, I planned to sell my shop and move far away. That is, if my one true friend would join me. Before leaving the office, I took the news piece and the photos. I scanned and printed them out. I put it all in a folder for my lawyer to use in court. Amanda Peterson couldn't believe it when the FBI arrested her mom and her mom's new husband. Then they drove her little sister away in another car. She was thankful an agent explained things to her. Turns out her real parents were not split up. He never wanted her name changed or to give up seeing her like she was told. The FBI found out all the signed papers were fake, not really signed by him. Her mom was caught for taking the kids without rights. Her stepdad was caught for the kidnap and helping hide a big crime. They both faced a lot of other charges. Miranda would stay somewhere safe until a DNA test could show who her real dad was. Since her mom was still saying her current husband was the dad, Amanda went home to pack her bags. Amanda sat in the St. Louis airport waiting to board her next flight to Cape. An empty seat nearby held a copy of U.S. Today with a story that caught her eye. She read it, and by the end, tears were filling her eyes. She spent the whole flight trying to make sense of her mother's actions towards her father. Nothing seemed right. Her mom had shared bits about Ronald and their chats online, but Amanda never thought it would lead to anything. That belief shattered the day her mom asked for a divorce. Amanda was on the steps of their house, listening as her mom told her dad over coffee that she didn't love him anymore. Her dad was heartbroken, but her mom didn't care. She just saw him as another man, easily replaced. The newspaper article added more layers to the mystery of her mom and Ronald's past, leaving Amanda with more questions as the plane began to land. She wondered if she could find a phone at the deserted car rental booth. It was 11 a.m. Amanda was in her car, staked out in front of her old home, waiting for the cops to leave. She'd been there 2 hours when suddenly 2 cars blocked her in. An officer with a gun came over and told her to get out with her hands up. She did what she was told. "Who are you? Why are you here?" the tall officer asked. "I'm Amanda Peterson. I wanted to see my dad after the cops left." "And your dad is?" he followed up. "John Masters," she answered. "Shit," the officer cursed, shocked. "Tom, tell Joanne and Jody to make coffee. This is not what we thought. Miss Peterson, I'm Detective Joel Smithers. We need to talk. All 5 of us for a long time. I know your dad well. Why are you back after so long?" The question was out in the open as they sat in the coffee shop. Joel, the detective, had just finished reading an article from the USA Today newspaper out loud. The room was quiet, but Joel wasn't shocked. "You trusted my dad, didn't you, Detective?" Amanda asked. "I was one of the few who did," Joel admitted. "When your mom's side of the family started bad-mouthing your dad, it was already too late. They went too far. This place got messed up real bad and he had to sell. The second time he got jumped and ended up in the hospital, that nearly ended him for good. We got to him just in time, or he'd have died right here. People wanted payback for something they thought he did to you all. Most thought you were all gone, and that your dad was to blame. To many, your dad was as good as gone already." Joel explained how Jody, the new owner, managed to calm things a bit by showing up in a sheriff's car. "So it got so bad for my dad that he had to leave?" Amanda needed to know. "Yep. Around here, some think they know what's right and wrong. Your dad now lives at Ryder Lake, 5 acres, all fenced up with electric wire and a big locked gate. No one's seen him in town for 2 years except at work." "How can I find him?" Amanda wondered. "I might have an idea," said Tom, stepping out quickly. When he returned, he had a piece of paper with an address. "Do you know Helen Beard?" Tom asked her. "She's my mom's second cousin, I think." "Why?" Amanda was curious. In this small town, wrapped in its own sense of right and wrong, a tale unfolded. It was a tale of misunderstandings, judgments, and a family torn apart, now seeking to find its way back to each other through the fog of gossip and fear. Amanda, with a slip of paper in her hand, might just have found the first clue to reconnecting with her father, a man cast out by his own, now living in solitude, protected by nothing but electric wires and the hope that one day the truth would bring his daughter back to him. In our urgent files, she's the only link to him, always. Tom mentioned he had spoken to her, and she's willing to chat with you, but no sure things were promised. Something fresh about Miss Beard. She's like a wall, firm, tough, and icy to anyone getting too close to her boss for personal reasons. You need to know that Helen guards your dad, John, like a hawk watches its young. If she doubts you for a second, she'll do whatever to keep you away from him. Right now, she's heading to your dad's company. She'll wait there for you, he said, giving her the location. Amanda thanked them before setting off. Why would any woman despise a man like what Delia did to John? Jody pondered. One who pins all her life's wrongs on him, Joanne replied. As Amanda's car parked next to hers, Helen Beard quickly turned her phone's voice recorder on and opened the door to let Amanda inside. The first thing I want to know, Amanda, is what exactly happened around the time you three vanished and what you found out later, Helen inquired. Miranda and I were woken up by Mom that Saturday at 4 a.m., pulled from bed, still half asleep. She rushed us to get dressed, saying we were off. We saw the car packed with some clothes. She announced she had the week off and we were headed for a surprise trip to New York, Amanda shared, revealing they were clueless until then. So you didn't really grasp what was happening according to your story? Helen pressed. From what some relatives say now, they knew about Ronald and our mom's online chats, believing it was just a friendly thing. Yeah, I saw my mom talking to Ronald once, but never guessed they had a past from when we were young. She claimed they met at a conference and hit it off as friends. Half an hour down the road, Amanda realized they'd left without their phones. That's when she asked her mom what was going on. Her mom said she had full rights to take them, and they were moving to New York because of a big job move. Amanda later found out that wasn't the whole truth, but she had no reason to doubt her mom then. Helen Beard knew something was off, as others started to speak up, admitting they knew bits about the move that Amanda and her sister didn't. Amanda also wondered about their laptops. Her mom explained that the phone plans were canceled because of the move, and she needed to clear the bills. The laptops would be sent with the rest of the stuff by movers, or so they were told. Little did they know they would never see those again. We spent over 20 hours driving across 2 days, Amanda shared. As they neared New York, their mom had Miranda, Amanda's sister, take out a new phone from her purse. It had a New York number. They hadn't known about it until then. Her mom then asked Miranda to use Google Maps for directions. Unbeknownst to them, those instructions led to Ronald Peterson's house. 2 hours later, the truth began to unfold. Ronald had arranged for the job move to bring them closer. The family back home was told to get rid of everything but the family photos, which were mailed later. Unpacking the car, the sisters found adoption papers already filled out. Ronald himself explained that the adoption was agreed upon because he and their mother were getting married. and he was their biological dad. That night, their mother opened up, urging them to give her and Ronald a chance, since he was their real dad. They slowly came to believe that their dad had cut ties because he couldn't handle the truth about Ronald being their biological father. Amanda sat in the St. Louis airport, waiting to board her next flight to Cape. An empty seat nearby held a copy of US Today with a story that caught her eye. She read it, and by the end, tears were filling her eyes. She spent the whole flight trying to make sense of her mother's actions towards her father. Nothing seemed right. Her mom had shared bits about Ronald and their chats online, but Amanda never thought it would lead to anything. That belief shattered the day her mom asked for a divorce. Amanda was on the steps of their house, listening as her mom told her dad over coffee that she didn't love him anymore. Her dad was heartbroken, but her mom didn't care. She just saw him as another man, easily replaced. The newspaper article added more layers to the mystery of her mom and Ronald's past, leaving Amanda with more questions as the plane began to land. She wondered if she could find a phone at the deserted car rental booth. It was 11 a.m. Amanda was in her car, staked out in front of her old home, waiting for the cops to leave. She'd been there 2 hours when suddenly 2 cars blocked her in. An officer with a gun came over and told her to get out with her hands up. She did what she was told. "Who are you? Why are you here?" the tall officer asked. "I'm Amanda Peterson. I wanted to see my dad after the cops left." "And your dad is?" He followed up. "John Masters?" she answered. "Shit," the officer cursed, shocked. "Tom, tell Joanne and Jody to make coffee. This is not what we thought. Miss Peterson, I'm Detective Joel Smithers. We need to talk, all 5 of us, for a long time." A couple of weeks back, a picture in the paper was the first clue for many about your mom's new life and your new name. The day your dad was hit with those papers, your mom tried to reach out to the family. She wanted her big problems to just disappear. Helen shared the story. For over 5 years, your dad has been on the run, hiding because of what your mom did. It was so bad we almost lost him 2 times. "How's my dad, really?" Amanda asked, worried. "He's changed a lot. He's much thinner now, and the stress turned his hair white. He got so many mean messages and threats on his Facebook, he had to shut it down. He even had to take his name off the business page because they wouldn't stop there. They wanted to ruin him. It's been tough, and he's learned not to trust easily anymore. He used to be so friendly. Now he's quiet and keeps to himself. He's free, but not really. There are still people out there who want to hurt him," Helen said. "He shops in different towns to avoid trouble. Things are slowly getting better for him, but even his own family turned their backs. The divorce was bad enough, but then people thought he had done something terrible to you 3. "Does Dad have a girlfriend?" Amanda asked. "After what your mom said about him, who would want to date him?" Helen replied. "For more than 5 years, he's been fighting against a lie, and no one would listen." Amanda stayed quiet, then said that every time he tried to clear his name, it just made things worse because people had already made up their minds. He was left to deal with it all by himself. Things got even harder when you all disappeared suddenly because it made people believe your mom's story even more. Adelia and Ronald had planned it too well. In the end, your dad was the one who paid the biggest price. Helen was crying. She was scared he would hurt himself. "Let's go eat," she said. That's when Amanda knew how much Holly had given up. She had stood by her dad for 5 long years. What had she missed out on during that time? As they walked to meet Helen, Carmen stopped. "Thank you, Helen," she said. "For what?" Helen asked. "For being brave these past 5 years. For staying by my dad's side and loving him," Amanda said. Amanda couldn't keep her feelings inside any longer. She hugged Helen tightly as both of them cried. I was in my car outside Ruby Tuesdays waiting for them, unsure of what to say to my daughter who I hadn't seen in over 5 years. My heart was pounding. I went over the conversation between Helen and Amanda in my head, trying to make sense of it all. I watched them walk into the restaurant. My hands were shaking so much I could barely light my cigarette. Seeing Amanda after all this time was overwhelming. She looked so grown up and beautiful, reminding me of my mother, which hurt because my family had cut ties with me. Not long after, I lost touch with my wife and daughters, too. After finishing my cigarette, I braced myself for the tough walk ahead. The waitress from a couple of weeks ago was working as the hostess. She recognized me and mentioned that Amanda was here. She had already seated her and her friend. "Are you meeting them?" she asked. I nodded. "Well, Amanda will have her back to us as we walk up," she said, leading me to their table. Helen noticed me first and gave me a warm smile. I sat down next to her, taking her hand for support, something I hadn't done in over 5 years. Then I turned to face Amanda, looking into her eyes. Neither of us said a word, but tears started to flow freely. Sometimes there are no words for moments like these. I had asked the lady at the front to bring us a big jug of their own wine. When it arrived, the lady who brought it didn't say a word after pouring our first glass. She left us be. Amanda was amazed. Her dad had changed a lot. He must have dropped a good 40 pounds. His face seemed leaner, longer, and older, too. His hair, now a shiny white, was the kind many would pay a lot to have at his age. One of us had to break the silence, so she got up. I did the same. We moved towards each other and shared a big hug by the table's edge. She cried out loud. "Dad?" I said softly. "Alma," my old nickname for her. That moment melted the ice between us. Once we had calmed down a bit, we ordered our meal. Amanda was taken aback by the change in my eating habits. I used to be all about meat and potatoes, filling my plate with heaps of them. But now, I went for a catfish dish and hit the salad bar without limit. Went back for salad 3 times while Helen did the same. It gave Amanda a moment to chat with me alone. "Helen loves you, Dad, maybe more than I do," Amanda said. She told me how Helen had questioned her like a strict soldier before deciding she could trust her. She wasn't going to let me get hurt again. I admitted my regrets, saying I was old enough to find out the truth, but didn't. I couldn't forgive myself for that. For 5 years, I didn't have a life to share with anyone, I told her. If they had found a body and said it was one of you, I might have ended up in jail. Most folks thought I had done something awful to you 3 and got away with it. I nodded. So, 3 years back, I made everything mine in Helen's name. After 2 times in the hospital from being stabbed, I was close to giving up. But she pulled me back from going over the edge. When I looked up, Amanda was crying again. "What did you tell her to make her start crying again?" she asked. "Not much," I said, keeping it short. 3 years back, while I was in the hospital and ready to give up on life, I changed my will. Everything was to go to you. It was your love that pulled me back. This led to 2 women weeping. After we ate, we returned the car we had rented. Then they came with me to my house by Ryder Lake. They were amazed by my house with its lake view, 4 rooms upstairs, a big area for gathering, a living space, a kitchen, a place to wash clothes, and the main bedroom on the first floor. There was also a path covered from the garage to the house. I tried to help Amanda with her bags, but she said no. I thought she wanted us to have some alone time. Helen then told me she hadn't been able to share her feelings because of her past. She was scared of what might come back to haunt her. Not knowing was the hardest part. Adelia and Ronald played on that fear to control her. But now, freed from their grip, Helen was ready to look forward. She couldn't do that before. She took my hand, her smile wide. She said she would rather move in with me than let me sell this beautiful place. Getting caught by your child while you're with someone else is always awkward, no matter your age. That's what happened with my daughter. For the next hour, we caught up. She told me about her dead-end job and how she was studying for a master's in business administration online. She wasn't seeing anyone. I suggested she come work with us. We could use her help and provide a new perspective. "Really?" Amanda was surprised. "Yes, Helen and I insist." We offered her a start with a salary of $45,000 a year. She was amazed. "I guess I have to find a new place," Amanda said, looking a bit lost. "Hold on," I told her. "We have plenty of room here. Just like old times, you'll have to help out with chores." Amanda tried to smile, but I saw tears start to fall. "Dad, you mean so much to me," she said. "I'll head out tomorrow to pack up if I can get a flight. I should be back by Wednesday in my car," Amanda planned out loud. "Let's swap phone numbers," I suggested. We had just done that when Amanda's phone buzzed with a new message from Miranda. Amanda showed me the screen. "Got my phone back finally. The FBI won't let me go until they know if Ronald Peterson is really my dad. They checked the papers for my adoption and say they're fake. I can't call, only text from this secure place." Amanda texted her back. With our real dad now, flying to New York tomorrow, going back home to help out and join his work. His number is listed as Sir in my phone. Miranda replied, "Bring my stuff and my laptop. The lawyers can take the rest. And can you get today's USA Today? There's a story about us." "You should read it. It's got a lot I didn't know. Call when you can, I've got lots to tell you," Amanda texted. Then, Helen saw me step out to the patio and came over. "How are you doing?" she asked gently. "Feeling all over the place," I admitted, and we hugged. "How about I take Amanda and we get some of my things? You could have some quiet," Helen proposed. I agreed, sending her the digital lock code for the gate and handing her the house keys, suggesting we make more copies. Maybe 4. They were out for around 2 hours. I spent most of that time letting tears flow, feeling a mix of emotions. I felt it all coming out. The pain I held inside for too long was like a floodgate opening, but when they came back, I was all smiles, and so were they. I was outside by the grill ready to cook some steaks we had thawed. The salad was done and potatoes were in the oven. As they came in, talking and laughing, they brought in load after load. Soon, the big bed was covered with stuff. We found out Amanda would be flying away early Sunday. Helen and I would help move more of her things tomorrow. It made me happy to watch them enjoy a big meal. Later, as we sipped coffee, my phone rang. Only the FBI had this number. I picked up. "Hello, Mr. Masters, it's Doug Drysdale. I have news. The DNA test confirmed you are Miranda's dad. We found out 2 hours ago. She knows now and wants to come home. She lands here at 7:30 Monday morning." "That's great," I said. "Helen and I will be there." Doug went on. "Amanda should know. Her sister saw that news article online, and Ronald Peterson was shocked to learn the truth about Miranda. Adelia had lied to him. Still, he's in big trouble with the law." "One thing, what's my daughter's legal last name now?" I asked. "Masters," he said. "A judge decided on Friday. You'll get the papers Monday to change their IDs." After we hung up, I broke down. Tears came and I couldn't talk. Helen and Amanda got worried, but I managed to pull myself together quickly. So there I was, caught in a moment of joy mixed with a heavy heart, feeling the weight of everything that had happened lifting off. Yet, there was comfort in knowing we were finally moving forward, together as a family, after all the twists and turns life had thrown our way. Miranda was set to land at the airport at 7:30 on Monday morning. The DNA test showed she was mine. When I shared this news with Ronald Peterson, he was crushed. Adelia had him thinking she was his kid. "I always knew," Helen said. "Did Adelia ever share the real story with anyone?" "Amanda, I've got some sad news. Your last name has to go back to Masters because the court said your adoption doesn't count." My girl came running into my hug, crying. The name Peterson never felt like us. We waved goodbye to Amanda as she went back to New York to grab her stuff in her car. Next, we planned to meet Helen's 2 brothers and their wives in Jackson. They agreed to help move Helen's things out of her place. Since we only had 2 rooms with stuff in our house, there was plenty of space for her things. The whole story was out in the Sunday paper for everyone to read. We caught up over breakfast at Hickory House. Everyone could see the happy shine in Helen's face. Her sisters-in-law teased that in 6 months, with Helen's cooking, I'd be a bit heavier. The restaurant owner, a good friend for years, told us, "Congrats, John. This meal's on the house." We managed everything in just 1 day. I think Helen's sisters-in-law wished they had a new house too. Helen and I asked if they'd like to go out to dinner. They said no, but mentioned they'd come over when we had our first big family gathering at our place. We got to the airport at 7:15 because sometimes the early flight gets in before time. Helen had told the important folks we wouldn't be around today. They said, "We guessed that after reading the Sunday paper." I watched Miranda walk down from the small plane towards me, wearing jeans and a tank top. It was hard to believe how much she had changed since the last time I had seen her, back when she was just a kid with pigtails. The story, now simpler and more relatable, keeps its core themes of family, identity, and new beginnings, while ensuring it's accessible to a wider audience through common language and varied sentence structures. As I stood there, a young girl came running toward me. Quickly, she got close, and as soon as she saw me, she picked up speed. The doors slid open, and she dashed through. With a loud shout, she jumped into my arms. We both let out our feelings, crying. Around us, cameras clicked and flashed. It didn't matter to us. I overheard someone telling the news team. That man there is John Masters, and the girl is his youngest daughter. Many in town thought he had hurt her, but no, she and her sister were taken away 5 years ago. Their mom and her boyfriend are now in jail for it. This is their first meet in 5 years. We stopped and faced the reporter. I'm Miranda Masters, and he's my dad, John. 5 years back, my mom's family helped take us away. They spread lies that our dad did bad things to us. That's false. My mom's family might do such things, but my dad wouldn't. Anyone trying to hurt him will have to deal with us. We are a tight-knit family. Mom said she was leaving Dad because he deserved it. But what she did to us was wrong. Dad is not just my dad. He's the most upright man I know. I introduced Miranda to Helen. Miranda hugged her. Amanda and I talked all yesterday. We realized Mom had tricked Ronald as much as Dad, all to be the center of attention. In doing so, she nearly ruined 5 lives. We know Dad and you plan to marry. So, we're okay with forgetting the bad parts, right, Mom? Helen's eyes filled with tears. What you said means the world, Miranda. I'd love for you to be my bridesmaid. I then suggested, how about we grab some breakfast, then get you girls some new clothes from Macy's? Miranda wanted to know if Denny's was still an option for breakfast. Yeah, Huddle House was our go-to for breakfast grub. Sure thing. I agreed to it. And wow, did my youngest put away food. Kinda joked that maybe she ought to get her own place. Might cost less. Having my girls with me, feeling like a family again, was something I never thought I'd get back. Home didn't just feel like a place to sleep anymore. It felt warm, alive. And then there we were, Macy's. I wandered off pretending I got lost. Couldn't really stand there while the ladies picked out underwear and such. Too much for me. When they noticed I was gone, I told them I was just hitting the bathroom. I watched as Miranda tried on clothes, looking for my thumbs up. Honestly, she looked great in anything to me. But $300 later, we walked out with bags of stuff. Back home, Helen showed Miranda the furnished rooms upstairs. Helen was over the moon when Miranda chose the room with her old master bedroom set. Out on the patio, the air was still cool. They sipped iced tea. I stuck with a cold drink. Then I walked over to Helen, ring box in hand. Dropped to one knee and popped the question once my divorce was wrapped up. She said yes, right there. Miranda filmed it, sent it to Amanda. Got Helen's ring size from her brother. It was perfect. Not long after, Helen's phone rang. She teared up. Miranda and I looked on, worried. Then she handed me the phone and I heard, "Congrats, Dad." It was my eldest. "You on the road yet?" I asked. "Left at 4 yesterday," she said. This moment, it all felt real, like everything was coming together. The house was full of life, laughter, and now, an upcoming wedding. Didn't think life could turn around like this, but here we were, a family whole again, stepping into a new chapter together. Amanda had been driving without stopping, she told me. She liked driving at night because there were fewer cars and not as many police on the roads. Her car could easily go over 100 miles per hour. I made sure to tell her I got the stuff for our sister, like I promised. I asked how much longer she had to drive. "What time is it there?" she asked. I told her it was about 2 p.m. Why? She needed me to tell her how to get to us. She had just taken the exit for Cape. I said I'd text her the way. I wasn't sure if I should be proud or worried because it seemed she had been on the road for 24 hours straight. Our girls heard the car and rushed to the door to greet her before she even got out. Amanda looked really tired but was okay otherwise. Then, seeing my 3 girls together really got to me. The first thing Amanda did was check out Helen's engagement ring. That's when the house phone rang. I answered it quickly. "John, it's been crazy today," Chris said. "Some of our old clients have come back after hearing those wrong stories about us, and we've got lots of new ones calling, even from other states. If this keeps up, we'll need a bigger team. I'm on it already," I told him. "My daughter Amanda is starting as a junior next week. She's still learning but is working on her master's in business." "Can she be on my team?" Chris wanted to know. "It'll be a lot of work, but she'll learn a lot." I agreed. Chris Acker was hard-working. I hired him fresh from school where he was top of his class. Like us, he had learned things the tough way, which cost us at first. But over time, he showed his worth. What he learned in school often didn't apply in real life, but he knew that and was okay saying it. Anyone working with him learned the same way. His method was simple. If you see someone making a mistake, stop them and explain what they're doing wrong. This way, They learn right from wrong directly. Once there was a rule that the only bad question was the one you didn't dare to ask. Me, my best pals. Chris and Helen decided we needed a break for a bit. We've got lots to sort out, I mentioned. With our new promise to marry and our girls coming home, we found ourselves knee-deep in legal issues we had to fix, not forgetting to get Miranda set for school. Engaged? That sure caught Chris off guard. Oh, right. A letter from the FBI came by courier. Mind getting it at 5? Chris chimed in. Totally forgot. Thanks for the nudge, I replied right before we hung up. At 4:30 p.m., our little crew was off to town. We chose to dine at Red Lobster to mark our first meal as a family, a place chosen by my daughters. Parking our car in front of the office, I asked Amanda if she was curious about her future workplace. She was, so in we went. The receptionist greeted us warmly, guiding us to the largest meeting room. What awaited was a celebration cake and a banner that screamed, "Congratulations." Amanda met her future boss. Everyone got a glimpse of my new family, and my daughters had already started calling Helen Mom. We reached the restaurant around 6:30 p.m., right in time for their yearly shrimp feast. My daughters stopped counting after 140 shrimp and were amazed at how I could eat raw lemons as if they were oranges. Reading a court decision together, the judge pointed out that the document looked like something anyone could pull off a website without needing a lawyer. The second point was about a signature that looked copied, with ink flow breaking unnaturally due to tracing. It didn't match up consistently across the document, suggesting it wasn't a true, practiced signature. And finally, the way I signed my name never included my full middle name. Another giveaway. With these points laid out, it seemed we had a lot of challenges ahead. But as a new family, we were ready to take them on together, learning and growing through each step. The fourth clear sign that something was wrong came when the date on my signature, as said by the people who saw it, was after they had left Missouri. The second page showed a court decision that Amanda and Miranda Peterson were never their real names. So, in the court's view, they were always Amanda Masters and Miranda Masters. All proofs of who they were had to be changed to show this. We spent the week fixing these legal issues. First, we went to the Social Security office, then to the state attorney's office to fix their birth certificates, and finally to the DMV for new driver's licenses with their real names. I felt really good about facing the same school principal again to sign Miranda up for the 11th grade, who had been unhelpful 5 years ago. The last thing I did on Thursday was to get them new phones. On Friday, I took Amanda and Miranda with Helen to the Ford Groves car place in Jackson. She agreed to trade in her old car, and Helen did the same. They both ended up with a brand new 2019 Ford Escape to drive, thanks to my company's lease-to-own plan. Once home, I gave Amanda a check for the trade-in value we got from our big down payment. My divorce lawyer, who I hadn't heard from in 5 years, called me. He said my daughters and I needed to be in court at 1 p.m. on Monday. I asked Helen if she'd come with us. She strongly agreed. We all sat before Judge Donald McDonald, watching Adelia Lynn Peterson appear on the big screen without any of her usual flair. She didn't look strong or important. Wearing orange really didn't flatter her. The judge asked her lawyer if he wanted to speak about the contempt charge. He said Adelia claimed she didn't know she had to be in court that day. The judge looked at her lawyer and asked, "Did you make sure she knew about the deal you were making many times?" He said, "Yes. Do you really think I'm so bad at my job that I'd let the other side trick me?" The lawyer shot back, "No. What does your client want to do? Plead no contest?" "No contest," the lawyer replied. The judge then said, "I'm giving her 5 years, which will start after any time she's got to serve for other things. And that's final." "Your Honor," her lawyer started, "don't you think that's a bit too much?" Judge McDonald shook his head. "Not from where I stand, but she can always appeal. As for the divorce, it goes to Mr. Masters. Whatever was left from their marriage, she lost it the day she took off with their kids. Go ahead and sort out the divorce papers and skip the usual wait. My decision stands." Then my lawyer added, "Your Honor, my client has one more wish if you'd consider it." The judge looked at me, waiting. "He's just got engaged to Mrs. Helen Beard, and they were wondering if you'd do the honor of marrying them." My lawyer said this, and Helen and the girls were so happy they nearly jumped up. I couldn't help but smile big. We knew this might happen. If it did, my lawyer was to use the money I gave him to sort everything with the cars for Helen and the kids, and then cut me a check with whatever was left. I'd be happy to, and congrats to you both. It's about time, the judge responded, smiling wide. Through the screen, we could all see Delia's face, bright with shock. I guess she thought she'd get off easy with a short time for her contempt charge. But now, hearing all this, especially me getting married to her younger cousin, must have been a real sting. With that, the judge hit his mallet and declared, "Court is adjourned." Everything in the courtroom felt tense, but also like a new start was just around the corner. After we stood up, the judge came to me and shook my hand. I told him about my soon-to-be wife and my girls, showing him the respect I felt he deserved. He smiled at them and said, "I'm just a regular guy right now, not a judge." He then said to me, "We should go fly fishing, John, before it gets too warm." My girls got really excited about that idea. They began talking all at once. After a long time of quiet in my life, their chatter was a bit overwhelming. I wished for peace and quiet again. Then I saw a couple leaving the courtroom quietly. It was a shock. They were the last people I expected to see there, my mom and dad, the same dad who had cut ties with me. It's one thing to forgive, but forgetting is another story. That day showed me just how hard it is to forget. The excitement didn't end there. After that day, our house was filled with wedding plans. Helen decided to sell her house. Amanda got along with my work people really well, showing them she was really smart. Miranda found some old friends again and started hanging out with them. My business, Masters Consulting, was doing great. We got 2 big companies as clients that needed a lot of help to stay afloat. Amanda found mistakes we hadn't seen that were costing a lot of money. In just 3 weeks, she fixed these issues, and sales went up a lot. Everyone was amazed. One night, while Helen and I were just lying in bed, she talked about how she was getting used to being a mom, just as I was getting used to being a dad again. Then she looked at me with those big, soft eyes and said, "You know, I'm thinking about us having a baby of our own. How long should we wait to try for 1 or 2? Her words filled the quiet night, a mix of hope and a bit of worry about the future. But mostly it was about us building a life together, creating new stories in the chapters of our lives that were yet to come. It was about fresh starts and the love that held us together, pushing us forward into our shared dreams and hopes. I have to be honest, I never really thought about it before. But after everything Helen had been through with me, saying no wasn't an option. So here's how I'll answer your question. As long as you're not popping up in our wedding pics, you do you. I guess I don't need to tell you why we both were wide awake all night after that talk. We chose Mother's Day to tie the knot. Amanda was the main bridesmaid, with Miranda and another niece helping out. Chris Acker was my best man, and my nephews helped as ushers. It was a cozy ceremony in our backyard. We had a creek flowing quietly nearby. Helen's brothers worked hard to get the yard looking good. A judge married us under an arch covered in spring flowers. All us guys wore jeans, cowboy hats, and boots to match. Of course, the ladies went all in. Helen shined in a classic white wedding dress. Her bridesmaids matched in yellow. Her family didn't hold back on the barbecue feast either. That evening, our patio transformed into a big dance floor filled with live tunes. Life was moving on. The trial for Adelia and Ronald kicked off. Ronald had asked for a divorce. My lawyer was talking things over with their lawyers, including some from Bank of America for the case. Our first Father's Day as a merged family was coming up. I had a feeling my wife and daughters had plans, but it was a mystery. On Father's Day, Helen and I took our canoe out on the lake at dawn for some fishing. The fish were really biting. It felt like the moment our flies hit the water, we got a bite. In under an hour, we caught our limit. Right before we decided to head back, Helen gave me a card she had hidden away. It read, "Happy Father's Day, Daddy. We're pregnant, and it's a boy." I got so excited I accidentally flipped the canoe. We lost it all, the fish, poles, and our tackle box. Soaking wet, we paddled back to shore, laughing about our little adventure. Once the girls heard how I found out, they laughed. They knew about Helen's big news already. Things usually take time to soften, but it's different for me. Seeing my son born changed everything. He arrived, loud and strong, weighing 7 pounds. My mom was shocked when I called her to rush to the hospital's baby ward. When she got there, I took her straight to Helen's room. My mom saw our son, Colin Richard, in Helen's arms and couldn't hold back her tears. Colin Richard was her granddad's name. As for my dad and me, we're not on speaking terms. He'd need to make the first move. So far, he hasn't. But each new day brings a fresh start and life moves forward. The girls finding out my secret made them giggle. They had been clued in about Helen's big moment before I told them. Usually it takes a bit for things to calm down, but for me, it's a bit quicker. The game changed when I watched my son enter this world, full of sound and fury, tipping the scale at 7 pounds. It blindsided my mom when I phoned, pleading with her to dash for the hospital's baby unit right away. Upon her arrival, I hustled her into Helen's room. There, my mom saw Helen cradling our boy, Colin Richard, and was overwhelmed. The name Colin Richard held a special place for her. It was her grandpa's. Meanwhile, my relationship with my father remains strained. He would need to approach me if things were to change. Currently, he has not. But each dawn is a new beginning and we keep moving on. Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.